call to order this regular scheduled meeting of the City of Griffin Board of Commissioners this April 11th, 2017. Our pledge tonight will be given by Mr. McLemore and an invocation given by Mr. Holberg.
Please join me in the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in prayer. Father, we're here today to ask for your blessings and guidance in the performance of our duties as elected officials. We pray for strength, love, knowledge, and understanding. Help us to recognize and solve the problems that are presented. Make our solutions fair and just to the best interest of everyone. Help us to overcome our shortcomings and keep us united as a team to work for the betterment of the city and its people. We pray in your name. Amen. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Got a motion to approve the agenda by Mr. Holberg.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Morrow. Any questions, comments? Being none, all in favor signify by raising your hand. 7-0. Item number 1, consider proclamation declaring April 23rd through the 29th, 2017 to be Georgia's Cities Week. And I'll read that here and...
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to consider proclamation. Motion by Mr. Morrow and second by Mr. Holberg. Any questions or comments? Being none, all in favor signify by raising your hand. Mr. Miller will come up front. Wait, that smile was only for pictures. Wait. We'll do it. We'll smile again. Proclamation, Georgia Cities Week, April 23rd through the 29th, 2017. Whereas city government is the closest to most citizens and has the most direct daily impact upon their lives, city government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent on public commitment to and an understanding of its many responsibilities. And whereas city government officials and employees share the responsibility of passing along their understanding of public services and benefits, they can educate citizens about the numerous partnerships with groups that help to bring quality of life that both celebrates our past and anticipates our future with a focus on redevelopment and sustainability. And whereas the Georgia Municipal Association and its member cities have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information, Georgia Cities Weeks with this year's theme, Cities in the Mix, is designed to encourage events, displays, and activities that highlight the importance of our municipalities and the efforts to revitalize downtown areas. And whereas Georgia Cities Week offers an important opportunity to convey to all of the citizens of Georgia that they can shape and influence government through their civic involvement, Georgia City Week gives cities an opportunity to share information about the valuable services cities provide to residents and how cities positively impact their quality of life. The week is also an opportunity to celebrate community achievements and recognize volunteers and city employees. Cities are also encouraged to use social media to celebrate or to post interesting facts about the city to its followers. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Griffin Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims April 23rd through the 29th, 2017 as Georgia Cities Week in the City of Griffin, Georgia, and encourages all its citizens, elected officials, and employees to recognize this week's purpose of highlighting our city services and vision and celebrate it accordingly. We do hereby declare that a copy of this proclamation be spread upon the minutes of the proceedings of this board, reflecting that I have hereunto caused the seal of the City of Griffin to be affixed on this, the 11th day of April, in the year of our Lord, 2017. Signed by Rodney McCord, attested by Kenneth Smith.
really quickly, just to update you a little bit about what we have going on during the week. With Cities in the Mix, we've seen a revitalization in some areas downtown from a youth art movement. A lot of kids, late teens, early to mid-20s, have been doing a lot of art installations downtown in the Slayton Alley space and things like that. So with arts in Cities in the Mix, we looked at the schedule and we saw that Glow ATL was also scheduled to be in town during that time. So it made sense to sort of to partner with them and see what we could all do together. So what we have several art installations throughout the week. One that I'm particularly excited about is it's called the Neon Unity sign. So there's literally a 2-foot by 3-foot sign, glowing sign that says Unity, that will be displayed in several places throughout the downtown area. And we're encouraging citizens to go visit it, take selfies in your display of Unity and post those in social media using the hashtag Unity in Griffin. That's one thing that we have. Another installation is a silver screen. So we'll have images projected onto City Hall throughout the week. And some of the events that are highlighting is Tuesday is BYOB lunch. For you, let your minds go there. It's bring your own bag lunch. So we'll have some entertainment in the park. Glow ATL will actually be there doing their people movement installation. So have a lot of activity in the park on that Tuesday. On that Wednesday, they're going to have another people movement workshop. It's going to be back at the 8th Street Church. They're really trying to revitalize that into an artist space. On Thursday, we're having Food Truck Thursday back at 6th Street Park as well. And on Friday, we're going to have an artist, I guess sort of a round table or symposium. So they're bringing Atlanta artists that are going to meet with some of our young Griffin artists to really just talk about creativity and how it can be used to change and revitalize the downtown area. And the entire week is going to be capped off with the Farm to Table Dinner Saturday, as well as it's called Soul Food Cypher. So it's going to be a spoken word poetry event at 8th Street Church, and that's going to be from 8 to 10. And the Farm to Table Dinner, I think it's 6 to 10 on the 6th Street Bridge. So we have a lot of different events going on, a lot of installations. So we look forward to really seeing Griffin and the downtown area revitalized and just active during this particular Georgia Cities Week.
When you say 8th Street Church, you mean the one on
The
8th
historic 8th Street Church. Yes, the historic 8th Street Church. Yes, no. So they've been down several times doing things in that location. They were here last year. So really looking at how can we activate that historic space and repurpose it and have that as a hub for downtown Griffin and activity and particularly arts activity in downtown Griffin. So thank you all for your support in this, and we look forward to a great week.
Item number 2, consider proclamation declaring April 18, 2017 as Griffin Lyman Appreciation Day and the month of April as Lyman Appreciation Month.
I move we approve.
Got a motion by Mr. Morrow, second by Ms. Ward. Any questions or comments? Being none, all in favor signify by raising your hand. It's 7-0. Lyman.
You busy? Line up, line up.
It's dark.
You met this guy?
This guy's head.
Brought some of our finest. Just a few.
We grew up together, by the way. Proclamation, Griffin Lyman Appreciation Day, whereas a lineman is a tradesman who constructs and maintains energy infrastructure, and the profession of lineman is steeped in personal, family, and professional tradition for these true public servants, whereas the City of Griffin and Griffin Power recognize the efforts of linemen in keeping the power on and protecting public safety, and whereas linemen are often first responders during storms and other catastrophic events, working to make the scene safe for other public safety heroes. They work every day in potentially hazardous conditions, often in extreme weather, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, to keep the power flowing for the rest of us. And whereas linemen work in dangerous situations with thousands of volts of electricity high atop power lines away from their own families to construct and maintain the energy infrastructure of this city, this state, and often as backup to out-of-state locations in need. And whereas linemen put their lives on the line literally every day with little recognition from the community regarding the inherent danger of their work. And whereas multiple organizations throughout the state, including Georgia EMC's Electric Cities of Georgia and Georgia Power, are coming together to ensure that linemen of Georgia are recognized for their effective and dedicated service to the citizens of this state. Whereas recognizing that the state of Georgia has designated April 18, 2017 as Georgia Lineman Appreciation Day and the month of April 2017 as National and State Lineman Appreciation Month, it is most fitting and proper that the linemen of Griffin Power be recognized for their effective, steadfast, and dedicated service to all the citizens of the city of Griffin, Georgia. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Griffin Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim April 18, 2017 as Griffin Lineman Appreciation Day in the City of Griffin, Georgia, and urges all citizens to pause to reflect their contributions and to thank any lineman you see, whether they're working near your home or you see them at a local restaurant, church, or school event, for their commitment and dedication to keeping the power on for all of our residents. We do hereby declare that a copy of this proclamation be spread upon the minutes of the proceedings of this board, reflecting that I have hereunto caused the seal of the City of Griffin to be affixed on this, the 11th day of April in the year of our Lord 2017, signed by me and attested by Mr. Kenny Smith.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you guys for all that you do.
Good job.
We need to get a picture. Hey, come back down.
Where do you want him?
Don't get in the way.
Wow. There you go.
When we were little, I would tell you about it. Somebody got to see it.
Camera right there. Come on, pal.
Somebody got to receive it.
Eric. Eric.
Come on here, more like it.
How you doing? Great. I'm up. Good job, guys. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good evening, and thank you, everybody, and I'm glad we weren't doing this last week. It was a little busy, so it might have been a little scarce in here. I'd sent Mr. Smith a note later in the week last week after we had just done a real brief assessment, and we did get beat up just a little bit, probably not as much as y'all saw because of the things that not only these guys do every day, but what we've been doing for the last 15 years. And some of the things that we talk about is we can't stop telling the stories of where we were 15 years ago, and it wasn't good. But thanks for everything y'all do, and thanks for your support, and for what these guys are doing now. It's a Class A electric distribution system that we're all proud of. So thank you again for all your support. Can't do it without you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, sir.
A third item on our agenda for tonight is to recognize Kendall Woodard, Executive Director with the Griffin Spalding Business and Tourism Association, that's the GSBTA, and the City of Griffin Main Street Manager as March 2017 Strongest Link Award. Toussaint Kirk, Development Services Director, and Mr. Daoud Amin, the Chairman of the GSBTA, will address.
All right, we're going to make this short and sweet. You know, it's always exciting to have a team member or staffer being nominated for for the strongest link. It's even better if that person actually wins. So, just for what I have to say is that it's great having Kendall on board because I don't have to worry about anything. She gets it done no matter what. It could be 11, 12 o'clock at night. You probably can find her in our office. And so I'm very thankful for that. And it puts me at ease in order for me to do my job. So thank you, Kendall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and commissioners, general public, city manager, attorney, media. I'm Daoud Amin. I serve as the volunteer chair for the Griffin Main Street program and the Griffin Spalding Business and Tourism Association. I began by saying it gives me great pleasure and a distinct honor to recognize Ms. Kendra Woodard tonight for the strongest link in the chain. I feel that this award is way overdue. The 4 years that Kendra been here, I just would like to say she was the driving force behind the formation of the Griffin Spalding Business and Tourism Association. GSBTA is a consolidated destination marketing organization whose focus is to promote business, tourism, trade, and conventions for the city of Griffin and Spalding County. Her tireless efforts date back to January of 2014, leading the charge in researching the state of Georgia hotel-motel tax revenue law. She attended training to better understanding the uses of restricted and non-restricted hotel-motel with tax revenue. She met with experts from the state to receive guidance on the steps necessary for a local government to increase from its current tax percent to the maximum of 8%. She met with both city and county managers and their respective board of commissioners to educate and to encourage the consolidation. She prepared PowerPoint presentations, wrote memorandum of understanding, and assisted in writing of the bylaws to govern GSBTA. She visited hotelers located in the city and personally invited them to attend a meeting designed to explain the tax increases and its benefits. She stayed vigilant through the ups and downs, and on July 1st, 2016, the Griffin Spalding Business and Tourism Association was formed with Kendra Woodard as its executive director. Just remember, this is unprecedented. She did not have a template of a predecessor to follow in. She had to create everything going forward. In late fall of 2016, she wrote, and in January of 2017 received a special projects grant from the Georgia Department of Economic Development, Tourism Product Development Division for fabrication and installation of the downtown sidewalk film markers and projects. And you'll see that coming forth here in the next coming weeks. Recently, GSBTA hosted and received high accolades for its role in success of the Georgia Beekeepers Association Spring Conference held in February the 17th through 18th at the UGA Griffin campus, which was attended by over 300 participants, each of whom received a souvenir gift bag. Throughout the development and implementation of GSBTA, Ms. Woodard has continued to meet her responsibilities as it relates to Main Street Manager for the city of Griffin. There are so many things that, as stated by Toussaint, that Kendra does, and I just think it's very appropriate for us to recognize Kendra with the strongest link in the chain award and with this plaque tonight. Congratulations, Kendra.
Go ahead, get in there, Rick.
No. And also, Kendra, here's another token of appreciation too.
Thank you. Thank you to Toussaint and Mr. Amin and City Board of Commissioners. Wow, it's been almost 4 years to the date in a couple of days that I've been employed with the City of Griffin, and it has been an honor and a pleasure to serve the residents here. Upon coming to Griffin, I was changing careers after 21 years, and I look really, really forward to helping to make our city a destination location. So thank you so very much.
I get that.
Mr. Morrow would say our item number 4, the boring part of our, hopefully it's boring, review financial reports from February 2017. Marcus Schwab, the Chief Financial Officer, will address.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As usual, we'll go ahead and start with the cash balance report.
I have some questions that popped in my head and thinking about it, so.
Yes, sir. Pop away.
Hop to it, huh? We have an item this evening, 7, on the agenda, money from the state asset forfeiture funds, and we have a confiscated asset fund, and I've always assumed those are the same. Are they?
Yes, sir.
We don't call them the same. I'm always surprised we use
But they are
different
the same.
names.
They're one and the same. It's the asset forfeiture fund. Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't know why we use different terminology. Also, I noticed the NSP fund has $360,000 in it, and is that money that's now ours, or is that in work, or is this residue, or what is that money?
That's a revolving program. Money comes back in and it goes back out. So that money is not ours. That's part of the program.
Okay, at some point, I understood that when it was all said and done, any money left over became the city's, but we're not there yet. Is that not true? Okay.
I don't think that's really where it goes. I think it stays in a revolving fund to be used over and over.
Okay.
Kind of like a DDRLF, the Downtown Revolving Loan Fund. This program is supposed to regenerate itself.
Okay. So as long as it revolves, it's okay, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I also noticed the TAD 2 had $359,000. That's the, I call it the Kroger TAD, is it not that area?
Correct.
And recently, we agreed to the state to put street lighting out there on the bridge. And I think it was said that we're going to use SPLOST transportation funds for that, but could we not use this TAD? Is not the purpose of this TAD to do those kinds of things, and that's in the district?
There are
No, that's-
bonds that money is pledged for those bonds.
But the bonds are just on,
It's repayment money for the bonds you sold
Okay.
to do the improvements you did initially for Kroger.
but not all that money comes just from the Kroger development. That comes from other redevelopment in the area, so that money could be used.
But it's,
No, it's a
some
small-
point it's supposed to
pledged for
accrue
Kroger.
money in that fund for local improvements, but is that only after the bonds are paid?
That whole tax allocation district, the increase in taxes that comes from that entire district goes to the Kroger bonds. If there's any left over from the payment of those bonds, it can be used. But DOT is paying for all the materials on the lighting of the 16 bridge, and all we're doing is the labor involved with that, which is in the electric department budget.
Okay.
So we're not planning to use SPLOST funds for the lighting on Highway 16.
Okay, I'm glad you corrected me on that. All right, and the last little question I had, municipal court fund has $624,000. Is that money that's been collected and not dispersed, or what is all that money in the municipal court fund?
Correct. Those are, the court fund acts as a fiduciary, basically collects the money, and then at the end remits those monies to either the municipalities or to the state or to the city based on the distribution rules.
Seems like quite a pile of money. We're getting ready to remit some.
Yes, sir. Yes, it's due.
All right. Sorry, just.
Nope, that's
I've got
good
a couple.
questions.
He had some of the same questions I had, so I'll hit you with a couple more.
Yes, sir.
The TAD 1 originally started off at $65,000. It's down to $18,800. What did we spend that money on that one?
Bonds.
I don't-
We
on
pulled
what-
money from that to
But what
pay
bonds for TAD 1? TAD 1 is downtown Griffin.
We hadn't sold any TAD 1 bonds.
That's not part of, you just,
Oh, it's just.
No,
okay,
sir.
then maybe I misspoke.
So we need to check that. There
Yes, sir.
shouldn't be, I don't think we've spent any TAD 1 money at this point.
I don't think you had any.
So we need to reconcile that. And then OPEB, is showing beginning of the year at 859,412, and then down at investments, it's showing the OPEB amount is just over 3 million. Shouldn't that money have been rolled back from?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow you. I see the OPEB fund at 859.
Right, and then down at the bottom, down in the investments column, it has OPEB fund $3 million.
Correct.
So shouldn't that have rolled over July 1 of last year if that was the starting balance to that OPEB
No.
fund?
No, because that's part of the trust fund. That money is sitting aside for post-employment retirement health benefits, post-employment health care benefits, and now what we're going to do for the 17 budget is we will start to pull money back for the OPEB, for the retiree portion of the health insurance, because that OPEB trust fund is now fully funded based on the actuarial schedules. So no, that money cannot be touched.
But I'm saying, why wouldn't that OPEB fund that's sitting there in the regular account be rolled into that trust fund or into the?
The 800,000? Okay, the way this worked was we built up the fund and we transferred money within our account, which is the one above. We would then, at the end of the year, prior to June 30, identify the amount that needed to be moved over to the trust fund. We computed that up to last year. We transferred that money over every year prior to, and that's the reason we have $3 million. Based on the actuarial tables and the computations, we are now fully funded. So we have not moved additional monies over. That money is now accumulating over time and is still sitting there. We will now pull that money back and pay the retiree portion of the health insurance. It's part of the pay-go part that we're allowed to use that money for. We are allowed to use that money for the pay-go portion.
If we're fully funded, why do we have to do the pay-go?
I'm sorry, say again?
If we're fully funded, why do we still need the OPEB to pay?
Because the plan prior to closing it had a number of participants in that plan. We closed the plan back in 2012, 14 or somewhat or so, I forget what year. We closed the plan, and thereby attrition takes over in that plan, thus reducing the overall liability.
Original liability was $32 million.
Correct.
Plus
We
or
needed to
minus.
fund this aggressively just so that we had some money on the pot available. So that trust fund was fully funded. To the credit of the board and our financial resources, we were able to make that happen.
So my question is that 859 that's sitting there
Yes.
is, were we overpaid into the OPEB fund at the time? So,
In essence, we did not
so your decision of whether
transfer.
you put it in a reserve to fund future post-retirement benefits.
Well, I don't think we necessarily overpaid, because at the time, that was our obligation.
I
Correct.
understand,
But we've
but
had some employees leave
get
that
other
were
jobs
being funded, and so that reduced our liability.
or died.
Correct.
Is that correct?
And that liability will continue to decline just by the nature of attrition. As the workforce ages and pulls out of that plan, then the liability too will drop.
But that 859 that's sitting there that doesn't have to be designated for that
Correct.
OPEB fund could be considered fund balance cash?
You're going to see that number start to decline this year because we have plans to pull that in.
So
It's roughly around $250,000 a year.
look forward to that presentation. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Go ahead and close that. All right, the local option sales tax shows us fairly good collections. Any questions? Yes, sir.
It's way below, well, it's not way below, but significantly below last year.
Yes.
And I know our economy's robust and so on. Is that the automobile factor? Or is the TAVT figured into that?
No, these numbers here is purely the local optional sales
That's right,
tax.
never mind, I just had a brain
Right.
freeze.
But there is a correlation between the motor vehicle TAVT and your local option sales tax numbers. I just recently read an article in Bloomberg about declining automotive sales. There's a stockpile now of vehicles, and they're not moving off the lots. So we're trying to figure out why that's happening. Now, back when just before the TAVT kicked in, there was a spike in sales. We experienced a nice wave of that buying spree. Well, we knew that over time that would taper off. We just didn't know when. We're seeing the effects of that tapering now. We've had conversations with the tax commissioner. Same conversation. We're not sure why this is happening, but the TAVT in the motor vehicle is down 30%, almost 60%.
So a lot of the sales tax decline then is automobile related, sales down.
It's tied to that. It's based on economic spending. Although there are comments about, oh, look, there's subdivisions going up, or there's renovations happening. Well, that's all part of the supply chain, and that's a lagging indicator based on the sales are a result of after that. That has to happen first. Then we'll see an uptick in the local option sales tax numbers.
At least the insurance premium is going up.
There is a silver lining, sir.
About $250,000 up.
Yes, sir.
And because we're dependent on Department of Revenue, who knows where those numbers come from?
Yeah.
Same thing with SPLOST. If you noticed, December was way up, January is way down comparatively, and February is going to be even worse than January. February's down. I forget what the number was the county said, but it's down even from January. You remember what the number was?
But you look at the,
Down.
It was almost the same thing.
but
It
you
said
look,
that this last check we just got was a little spike in the TAVT, so.
tax return.
All right, then the SPLOST schedule shows our funding up through January
I
right
like the
now.
way you did that schedule, designating for the substandard housing fund, the
Well,
transportation fund.
it's interesting you bring up that question, because in that document, you'll see two columns, one for blight and one for transportation.
Right, I like that.
And those are roughly the funds that are available for that. However, Mr. Smith may have additional commentary, which we're going to slide
We
right
don't.
back into our interim financial statements. So we'll talk about SPLOST another time. Any questions on the interim statements showing our revenue and expenses? No? Okay, thank you. Nice and boring,
Nice
aside
board.
from the cash questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions. Thank you, Mr. Schwab.
Thank you.
Item number 5, recognize number 1, an award for Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR, and 2, award for Outstanding Achievement in Popular Annual Financial Reporting for Popular Annual Financial Reports, the TAFR. Chief Financial Officer Marcus Schwab will address.
Thank you again. This is now the 13th Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which is the city's annual audit, where you've received the award. And then also now for the Popular Report, which was started for the 2006 fiscal year. So this is now 11 years running where we've continued that report. So you as leadership and the staff are to be commended for being able to attain these high-level awards. The Government Finance Officers Association of North America and Canada is a huge entity that grades a substantial amount of entities within government, whether it's a municipality, an authority, a state entity, a county, you name it. If you submit the reports for grading, they're involved in it. And being a member of the GFOA is a valuable membership, and you get a lot out of that. So I commend you and the staff and the leadership for giving us the resources to be able to achieve these awards. So on behalf of the staff, thank you.
One piece of paper says that for the accounting department, so
Yes, sir.
don't
Well-
be too modest now.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Good job.
All right, thank you. Can we do this later?
Full article.
At this time, we have our citizens' comments. The chairperson opens the floor to comments from the audience. Comments should relate to a specific agenda item not listed on the agenda for a public hearing or to a concern within the jurisdiction of the city. Commission meetings serve the purpose of conducting the city business and are not a forum for the unlimited expression of opinion. Chairperson reserves the right to limit comments to matters germane to city business and may refer speakers to the city manager or other staff for resolution. Is there anyone on my left that would like to approach the board? Anyone on my right would like to? Please come forward and state your name and address for the minutes.
Shannon Heron, 413 Terrace Street here in Griffin. I debated long and hard before I chose to speak tonight, and I hope that you'll indulge me for a moment with a little personal history. My maiden name is Nowakowski. My great-grandparents were immigrants from Poland. That same side of the family, my great-grandmother was the child of a German and a French woman. Have tales of Jewish and Cherokee in my history. I can trace myself back to George Washington. I have family who fought for the crown and family who fought for independence. I have cousins I never got to meet who died in Vietnam. I have family who fought on the Union side and the Confederate side. All of that to say, to hope that coupled with years of investment with you guys and with the city, that you will understand that I am approaching very humbly and that I mean no offense. And I'm just being sincere and from the heart. I think that the actions of the board at the last meeting to vote down a proclamation that recognizes a fact of history was inappropriate. It was poorly handled. The person who was to accept that proclamation rearranged his schedule. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Mr. Barrow, but he was the U.S. Head guy, I don't know what the proper title is, of the organization that he represents, a position that's due honor, just like your positions and many others. He made arrangements to be here, was blindsided by the actions that took place. So I want to ask you two things. One, please consider together and among yourselves how we will go forward in the proclamations that we choose to present. If we're going to be selective about history or organizations, then some of your citizens would like some direction about that. Secondly, and this is more procedural and much less about content, in the presentations and delegations part of the agenda each month, the only things that are listed as consider, which implies a vote and which does follow with the vote, are the proclamations. Those take place prior to the public comments portion of the agenda. Every proclamation that I can remember for years has been voted upon. This particular proclamation was voted upon. I would humbly suggest that perhaps you move proclamations to some point in the agenda after public comments. Once an item is is voted upon, it doesn't do any good for a citizen to have a comment, because our ability to influence you, if we were able, with some fact that Mr. Smith or somebody else didn't find along the way, does not apply anymore. Maybe you don't even need to vote on proclamations. I don't know. That's something for y'all to figure out. And I read through GMA stuff online, and I couldn't figure anything out, so maybe you'll have better luck with that. Our city has a rich and diverse history of all types and all people. I have a rich and diverse history of all types and all kinds of people. I have a rich and diverse present that I wouldn't trade for anything. And it hurts my heart to see us be selective when we've spent so many years, when I've watched this board go from independent and strong-willed to cohesive and one Griffin and being on the side of each other and compromising where sometimes we vote, or not we, but y'all vote for things that you don't necessarily agree with for the sake of the betterment of the community. And sometimes you vote against things for the same reason. And I just would ask that you consider these things going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments from my right? Please come forward, state your name and address for the minutes.
Most of you know I'm Larry Johnson, 122 Sherbrooke Way, Griffin, Georgia. Have vested interest, 1464 Beatty Street. Can y'all hear me over there now? Good. I appreciate what the young lady just said, but I would also like to say that, hey, y'all, I got a bunch of friends up here, okay? And I hope that when I get through speaking that you still will be my friends. I applaud you for what you do. I've said where you're sitting. I know the decisions you have to go through. I know the hard work and the many hours and some of the things that you do. Done that, been there. And Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to read a short statement that I have prepared.
Please do.
Okay. At your last meeting, with no discussion and no reason given, this board voted 6-1 to table a proclamation proclaiming April 2017 to be Confederate History Month and April 26, 2017 as Confederate Memorial Day in the city of Griffin. Commissioner Dick Morrow was the lone vote against tabling the proclamation. Georgia has declared Confederate History Month by proclamation since 1995 and by legislative authority since 2009. This board missed an excellent opportunity to take a leadership position for the city of Griffin by joining with the governor of the state of Georgia to urge its citizens to reflect on this historical period and to learn more about Georgia history and heritage. Like Governor Nathan Deal, I urge each of you to reflect on this time period. And I urge you to study the deeds of the men and women of the South. Teach our children the truth so that they may speak of their heritage with pride, fly their flags with honor, and sing their songs of the South again. And I have for each of you a summary of some of what I have found in my many, many hours of study. And I've also included some personal insight of why I'm proud to be Southern born and why I love Dixie. With your permission, if I may, I'd like to present this to the board. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on my right that would like to address the board? There are no further comments. We'll move to our, any commissioner have any comments? No further comments. We'll move to our public hearings. Public hearings are conducted to allow public comment on specific advertised issues such as rezoning, ordinances, policy developments. Do we have any? We don't have any. Okay, good. I can save that breath. We'll move to our consent agenda. Consider minutes of our March 28, 2017 City of Griffin Board of Commissioners workshop and regularly scheduled meeting.
Mr. Chairman, there's no objection. I move we approve the consent agenda, both items as presented.
6 and 7?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to consider items 6 and 7. Item 7 being the purchase of two 2016 Chevrolet Tahoe police vehicles. Motion by Mr. Morrow, second by Mr. Holberg. No further questions or comments. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Be 7-0. Moving on to our regular agenda. Item number 8, consider approval of a task order form for design and bid documents for signal upgrade SPLOST 2015 to Wilburn Engineering in the amount of $68,500 and $6,550 a month for construction management for Public Works. Public Work Director Dr. Brent Keller will address.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the task order as presented.
Got a motion by Mr. Morrow, second by Ms. Ward. Any further questions or comments? Being none, all in favor signify by raising your hand. That'll be 7-0. Item number 9, consider approval of bid and work contract for Meriwether Corridor CDBG Phase 1 CDBG number 16X126-2-5857 to Crawford Grading and Pipeline, Inc. in the amount of $501,552 for the Water and Wastewater Department. Got a motion by Ms. Ward,
Second?
second by Mr. Morrow. Any questions or comments?
Yes, sir, I need to know what streets that area involves, to whether I have to abstain or not.
Art, Westbrook, Skills,
Gotcha.
Booker, and English.
Okay. I'll be abstaining due to conflict of interest, of ownership.
Got a motion and a second. Any further comment? All in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We got 6, 4, none opposed, 1 abstention. Holberg abstains. Item number 10, consider approval to request supplemental safety funds for LMIG 2017 from the Georgia Department of Transportation in the amount of $128,065. Director of Public Works of Utilities, Brent Keller will address.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve this request and pray that it's successful.
Got a motion by Mr. Morrow, second by Ms. Ward to approve the request. Any further questions or comments? Being none, all in favor signify by raising your hand. That will be 7-0. Item number 11, consider on first reading a home rule ordinance amending the charter of the City of Griffin as section 6.2 Cemetery Trust. City Attorney Drew Whalen will address.
Mr. Chairman,
Got a motion?
Yes, I move we approve.
Got a motion, Mr. Morrow?
all right, before you
Second
vote,
by Ms.
before
Ward.
you vote,
Just-
though, just a
just-
moment,
just
this is a
be calm.
home rule ordinance. The law does not require a public hearing. However, it does require the running of an ad, which we've done over the last 3 weeks in the Griffin Daily News, that identifies the dates and times for these meetings where it's going to be read tonight, again at your meeting on the 25th. I think for that reason, if there's anybody here who wants to make a comment before your vote, they ought to have the opportunity to do so.
We got a motion by Mr. Morrow. Who was the second? Second by Ms. Ward. At this time, we open the floor for any comments from the commission, any comments from the audience.
Before casting the vote, I was hoping we could discuss what it is that you're actually approving. Because the intent of the trust, if this is what we're talking about, is the trust itself. The trust was designed or developed in order to provide funding, future funding, to cover the cemetery operations. Okay? At this time, today, that portfolio, while it has $2.5 million in there, does not generate sufficient income to cover the cemetery operations. It was almost $500,000. $57,000 versus $500,000. So what I'd like us to do is consider revising the ordinance that is presented there today to include language to allow the portfolio to build and grow. Today, there is language in that document that allows the dividends and interest to be siphoned off and brought back to the general fund. That concept contradicts the intent of the portfolio as it was developed in the beginning, to generate growth to a level of value at whatever level that we determine that to be, to generate sufficient income from the interest and dividends from the investment strategy.
Okay. Well, just a minute. Are you complete, or do you want to continue?
Well,
I got a comment and a question.
I'm open for discussion. Yes, sir.
Okay. If I understand this correctly, as I remember, we do pull part of the income out of the trust fund for use, which takes a part of the budget load off of the city manager. If we do as you say, then all will be supported by other city revenues at some point in the future. Theoretically it covers. So in the meantime, it throws an added burden on the budget.
Well, if I may add a correction to that.
Okay.
We have not pulled the dividends and interest from the trust fund. Those monies have always stayed there. What we have done is taken 50% of the sales and brought them over to the trust. 50% stay within the general fund, 50% get plowed into the trust. But the challenge that we have with the trust fund as it is today is there's not enough income and not enough investment strategy deployed in order to generate the money that we need to cover the cemetery operations. If we can grow the portfolio for the next 5, 10 years, or 15 years, to a level of about $10 million, then at that point, if economics hold and we get a 5 or 8% return off the portfolio, then at that point you'll have a sufficient amount of income available to maintain cemetery operations and completely reduce the burden on the general fund.
Mr. Schwab,
Yes, sir.
we discussed this in 15, and we discussed this in 08 when I was chairman. I'm sure each of y'all discuss it every time. My thought at the time was if we put 100% of lot sales into the portfolio and then did an 80-20 or a 75-25 or 75% of the profit investment each year would roll back to the general fund where the corpus would continue to grow. Some type of plan, see where you're going with it, but if you put something in writing where 100% of all lot sales go into the general fund and then, or to the trust fund, and then you figure out where that ratio is.
But that ratio will be highly dependent upon
On the investment,
the
right.
success
But
of
that's
the
how most foundations
economics.
and stuff work, based on growing the foundation, which this is the foundation. And then when there's profitable years, you take more, and then when there's leaner years, and you've got.
And there we'll be looking retrospect rather than to the future, because we can only pull what actually occurred. Now, here's the other challenge that we have. If the cemetery board is tasked with investing this portfolio to generate a sufficient amount of income, then the broker and the chief financial officer and those that have oversight over this portfolio will then deploy that strategy accordingly. In other words, if the market's going up, we're going to take 100% of that cash and plow it into the portfolio because we want to take advantage of the economics. If we see a decline, we're gonna pull that money away, and we're gonna kind of set it out here and reserve a little extra cash.
Or buy additional lots or additional dirt.
Well, see,
Because you're pulling that out of
these are
there.
discussions that I think need to be had before we approve the ordinance as presented. I'd like, personally, I'd like to.
Let me address that, though, because
Yes, sir.
I agree in principle with what Marcus is trying to say to you, but I think you need to go ahead and vote on this particular ordinance tonight and then again in 2 weeks. The only purpose of this amendment is to change the investment powers and the fiduciary standard of the Board of Trustees. The argument that he makes is one that I told him the other day. This trust was, from my research, was established in 1959. There were two things wrong with it as I see it looking back on it today. First off, we didn't put all the money from the sale of lots into the trust to become principal. Secondly, we've been siphoning off the net income and putting it in the general fund ever since this trust was created. Frankly, I think you've waited too long. I don't know that you would ever build this up unless you're going to buy a heck of a lot more land for cemetery purposes in the city, and I don't know if that's the direction that we're going as a society in the need for cemeteries. So I'm not real optimistic we could ever catch up to do exactly what Marcus is suggesting, although I think in principle it's the right idea.
Well, that's what's going through my brain. This investment strategy doesn't address that, but that fixes another problem. So if we decide to change, as Marcus suggests, that could very well be a separate amendment to this, but we need to loosen up the investment policy so we can make this money work, which we can do with this, right?
Right, that's
Okay.
correct.
And I thought we'd been siphoning off money from it, profits, and then Marcus said we hadn't been, so I'm really confused
We're getting
now.
half of lot sales.
Okay.
We've all been confused on this for a number of years, and we're trying to get it straightened out at this point. It's basically a pay me now, pay me later scenario. You either take the money off now and put what little bit that you're gaining toward maintenance, or you don't do that and let it build up over the next 15, 20 years. So it's a pay me now or pay me later. I think the Cemetery Trust Board actually recommended this particular revision.
That's right.
Well, I know it
that you
didn't
have
pop up
before
out of nowhere, so it came from some reasoned opinion. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
Yes, sir.
How many lots do we have to sell? Is that a feasible thing that we can make up? the
On
difference
average per
by
year?
selling lots?
Well, selling 200 lots is not gonna make up the difference.
Based on your current scenario, you're gonna be maintaining cemeteries for a long, long time
Through general fund.
with general fund
Right.
monies.
So we're
Long,
waiting
long
the second
time.
coming so we can get out of the
So-
business of it.
If you just put all the money, my thought was you put all the money that comes from lot sales into the fund and do some type of ratio to watching the corpus continue to grow, but also be able to share some of that.
I think that's a discussion for a different
And that would be,
day. But your point's well taken, I understand.
All right, thank you.
call the question.
We got a staff recommendation for us to vote on this, and I understand what you're saying as well. We got a motion and a second. Any further questions, comments? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed, like sign? Be 7-0. We want to do commissioners' comments now. How long will we be back? Do you think we'll be back?
Shouldn't be too long, but it might be 10 or 15 minutes.
All right, if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna take a liberty and go ahead and do our city manager's report and the commissioner's comment.
Yes, sir, mine are quite brief. This Friday's a holiday. It's Good Friday that we observe, as does the county, so our offices will be closed, all governmental offices will be closed. We do need a head count, if you'll get with Ms. Watson, on the GMA District 4 Spring meeting that's next Thursday in Turin. I'm sure everybody will be excited to go visit Turin, so if you'll let her know so we can get that head count to GMA as soon as possible. Citizens Fire Academy also starts that same night. If you've got any constituents we want to slide in right at the end, we'll be glad to do that. And we got one more night of Citizens Police Academy. That's been a lively group. They finish up this Thursday, and they'll be here for their graduation at our next meeting. I wanted to congratulate Mr. Schwab on his awards for the CAFRA and PAFRA, and long-standing awards, I think, pretty much since he's been here. So we appreciate his and his staff's work on that. And I really want to thank all the city crews that worked hard during the bad weather last week, public works guys, electric guys. We were really, really fortunate that we didn't have more complications than we had, but a lot of that's due to the employees out there that keep the lights on and keep the garbage picked up and keep us on sound footing. So I appreciate what they do in those less than ideal circumstances.
Mr. Whalen?
No comments.
Mr. Holbert?
Just want to congratulate Ms. Woodard. It's been such a pleasure working with you with downtown. Thank you for your hard work. To the Public Works and Electric Department, great job last week. And Brian, I go with picture B today. Good job. So remember, if you need your tickets for dinner on the bridge, I think Ms. Woodard can accommodate you, but if you don't come crying to us later.
All right, Mr. McElroy?
They said it well.
No comment.
Mr. Brown?
None, sir.
Mr. Morrow?
Yes, congratulations to Marcus and the whole team. That's a great honor, and I appreciate all of your effort. And I thought Ms. Herron's comments were right on target. I think we fell into the discrimination trap last time. I detest discrimination, whoever's doing it to whomever, and I don't think we meant to, but I think we did. And I thought you said it well.
Ms. Ward?
No comment.
And I too would like to congratulate Ms. Woodard and also the staff on the hard work. Congratulations, you got a wristband from Broadway Graphics coming that says that you are
You forgot?
that you are the strong link of the month. Also, I wanted to mention to Mr. Smith and to the board, we had a gentleman that passed away, and I wanted to make sure it was under the Ryan McLemore rule of a year. Mr. Darius Harris, who grew up in a community close to Heritage Apartments and planned a lot of events out at the Raymond Head Junior Park. We've been having a problem out there with kind of an unruly crowd lounging at the pavilion. I would like to petition the board to maybe put in honor of Mr. Harris, who died last year on May 5th or May 6th, or of naming that pavilion that is located at the Raymond Head Park, the Darius Head, which was his nickname, Harris Pavilion. So it's something that I think would be a positive spin on what he meant to that community. He was a young gentleman, I think I spoke about it last year, who started the kickball league, did a lot of things for the kids, making them write essays in order to participate in parties. And for those kids that grew up in that area and people who live in that area, it means a lot to have a young man who goes off to college and comes back and try to give back to the community, so that this would be just another positive thing, something that brings us together to try to help us out. So I would like to petition the board, and Mr. City Manager, you could get with Public Works, see if it's something that we could do, hopefully, sometime in May. His date of death would be a year of his death coming up May 5th or 6th. And I just thought it'd be a real good thing. Summer is getting ready to start, kids getting out of school, and we could recognize him. I'm sure his family would like that as well. And with that, I will
I'd like to make a motion to go into.
entertain a motion to, go ahead, Holbert.
Maybe I should go into closed session pursuant to OCGA Section 51434, executive session for the purpose of authorizing negotiations to